There we go.
Hello and welcome to another webinar in association with HackerJob. Today we're joined by some of the fantastic staff at the Very Group to tell you a little bit more about what's going on at the Very Group with a specific focus on Black Friday. So we're just going to give it a minute or so just for the attendees to fill up. Thank you to everyone who has joined us nice and early. As mentioned, today we're joined by the Very Group. So the title of today's webinar is Engineering Resilience, Delivering Black Friday at Scale with the Very Group. Just a few household rules beforehand. If you can make sure any questions you do have, please use the Q&A feature. We will try and get through as many of those questions at the end. Good thing about Q&A is any questions that are left over that we haven't been able to answer live, we will have them logged, so we can always follow up via email to make sure that we can get any answers that you're looking for out to you. Please try and avoid using the chat feature. We won't unfortunately be able to stop and kind of get through those chats as we go through the webinar, but please do use it at the end if you've enjoyed the talk to tell ourselves and all of our fantastic speakers how much you enjoyed them kind of chatting on. So a few quick introductions before we dive into the interesting bit. So a little bit about HackerJob first. So HackerJob is a data-driven and engaging recruitment platform operating in the digital sector. We use key data points to find candidates' jobs uniquely based on their CV and skill sets, ensuring both candidates and companies can conduct a more relevant and targeted approach to recruitment. Beyond that, we offer support before and after interviews, as well as offering candidates the opportunity to show off their skills through coding challenges and project uploads. Now, as mentioned, we're joined today by the Very Group. I'm sure they need no introduction. However, the Very Group, at the Very Group, technology has played a huge part in helping them transition from a catalogue retailer to the UK's largest integrated online retailer and financial services provider over the last century. But their transformation is far from over. They're on an exciting journey to transform their technology estate and create even better experiences for their customers. They're trying to do that by modernizing their existing systems and platforms, utilizing a wider variety of modern cloud-based technologies. So plenty to get stuck into. I think we're all very interested to hear those experiences of Black Friday from the people that have been on the front line of making Black Friday a reality. And I'm sure we'll get some really good nuggets of information about the tech that's been used to kind of power that journey as well. So just one final reminder for anyone who has joined a little bit later. Please use the Q&A feature. If you have any questions, we'll get round to those at the end and we'll try and answer as many of those as we can live. Any we don't get the chance to answer live, we will follow up via email. And we can also put some great links into the email that we follow up with to make sure that you've got all the tools and all of the information to get in touch with the Very Group if you're interested in moving forward with, which I'm sure you will be after today's talks. So that's more than enough for me. I'm now going to hand over to Cathy Daly, who's a senior planning lead at the Very Group, to start the webinar. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks so much, Phil, for that introduction. So I'm just going to share my screen, bear with me. And please let me know if somebody please shout out on the panel if this doesn't work, but I'm assuming it will. Bear with me. Okay, does that look all okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, brilliant. So good afternoon. As I've already been introduced, I'm Cathy and I work in the trading team within the Very Group. I'm just going to spend a few minutes giving you an overview of what Black Friday means to the Very Group. So I'm going to specifically focus on 4 key elements today. So first element, all about setting the scene of how important Black Friday is to all of retail, but also the Very Group. How we at the Very Group plan for Black Friday. What happens when we go live with our Black Friday event and essentially how we manage it, and then what makes Black Friday so successful at the Very Group. So starting off with setting the scene for Black Friday. So I really wanted to share with you how important Black Friday is to all of the retail landscape, as well as its importance to the Very Group. So firstly, when I talk about Black Friday sort of as an event, I'm specifically referencing the Black Friday event for the Very Group. So many retailers have different approaches to how they trade through Black Friday. So in terms of the length of the event, so some retailers have discounts for just the Black Friday day itself. Other retailers have Black Friday events that run right up to the full week leading up to the Black Friday day itself. But many, including the Very Group, run the event for pretty much the full month of November. So we start approximately early November and we end early December, so just after the Black Friday day itself.
Hi, Cathy. Sorry to jump in. Just, I'm not sure if you realize your notes are showing on the screen as well. I don't know.
Oh, okay. So how do I get these off? Because it shouldn't be showing. Just bear with me. I'll try again. Right, just it might be a different screen I need to share, mightn't it? Sorry, bear with me. Is that still showing notes?
Oh, that's good now. That looks good.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I must have shared the. Not used to Zoom. We use Teams within our business. So essentially, we pretty much run for the full month of November, and it is approximately a month-long event for the Very Group. So if we take the total online market, this includes all non-food retail online sales, so of which the Very Group are obviously part of. The Black Friday period accounts for around about 14% of all online sales across the whole year, which is double the size of a normal month. So it's significant within the total online market space. We also know that Black Friday has significantly grown over the last 5 years, so by 109%, so huge growth. If we also look at the Very Group sales over the Black Friday period, they pretty much follow a similar trend to what happens within the online market. So we've seen significant growth over the years, and a large proportion of our revenue comes over the Black Friday period also. So you can see in the graph on the slide, visually how much bigger the Black Friday month is versus other months of the year for the online market. So it's a significant event that is hugely important to all retailers, and we have to get our plans for Black Friday right. So now just moving on to how here at the Very Group we plan for the biggest event of the year. So we start planning as soon as the event ends, so essentially 11 months before the next event. What goes into that plan? So a huge amount of insight is what we start with. So some of the insight includes things like product. So we look at best-selling products by units and also by value. We tend to see the likes of perfume, AirPods, TVs, pillows that seem to perform well for us every year. We also look at what categories work best for us. So we are a department store and we sell hundreds of different categories. So what worked or didn't across fashion, sports, homewares, furniture, electrical, toys, gifts and beauty. And then from a customer perspective, we look at many different things. So our existing customers, how have they performed? So customers that shop with us already, have they shopped again into Black Friday? How many new customers did we attract? How much did each customer spend? What was their basket size? How frequently did they shop? Did they shop with us more than once over the Black Friday period? Did they use our credit service, or did they pay by direct debit or credit card? So lots of different things to understand on the customer. We also review the journey. So how did customers shop Black Friday? Did they come straight to our homepage or come through an affiliate or a PPC ad, or go directly through to the product? Did they use our Black Friday event page, or did they use the left-hand navigation? We also look at what channels. So from a marketing communication perspective, what worked? Did email work, TV adverts, the PPC ads, and app notifications, these just being a few examples. And then we also look at what days perform best, and also specific hours in the day. So did we see spikes in traffic, and why? So we also look at device. So what device did our customers mainly use throughout the Black Friday event? And did this change versus the normal behavior? So when we talk about device, we talk about desktop, mobile and app. And then we need to understand the competitor landscape. So this is hugely important. So we review what other retailers did over Black Friday, and was this successful for them? So looking at things like type of deals that they launched to the timing of their Black Friday events. So a huge amount of insight and research gets reviewed before we start planning for the next Black Friday event, hence why we need to start doing this a year before the event. And then I just wanted to share what actually happens when the Very Group launches the Black Friday event, and how we manage the event throughout the duration of it being live. So we've done all the research, we've built the plan, and we're now in the delivery phase, and the Black Friday event is live. And this, as I mentioned before, is usually early November. We tend to launch the event at midnight, and any updates to the event, such as new deals landing or changing any creative on the Black Friday event page, or reordering some of the deals, for example. So all of these updates we will do at midnight, and this is potentially to get us ahead of the competition, but also to protect the website. So by launching updates when we don't have as much traffic, just in case anything goes wrong, because it can do. We also monitor the Black Friday performance hourly, and this is just to ensure everything looks okay. So ensuring that there's nothing we need to be concerned about, and are we on track to deliver what we expect or there or thereabouts. We review what's selling or not. So many teams across the business are looking at performance on specific deals or specific products, and this is constantly monitored so we can take the relevant action. We're constantly price checking, so ensuring we're still competitive against the retailers within the market. We're reviewing stock on Black Friday deals, as you can imagine. So we run out of stock on many products, especially bestsellers. So just keeping on top of this and ensuring this is communicated to the rest of the business if a product or a deal needs to be removed due to low or no stock. And then we also re-merchandise what's called the sort of Black Friday selling page. We have what is called the Black Friday event page, and customers can get to this from the home page. And you can see all sorts of the Black Friday deals, from product deals, which are individual products, and also categories, which, for example, could be a 20% off sportswear, or even brand deals, which could be a discount off all Samsung. So it's just ensuring we have the best deals at the top of the page so they're the most visible to the customer. And this does obviously change, so it's moving some of them deals up and down the page. And then lastly, review and marketing support. So things like what day and time are emails going out to customers, when are we sending our app customers a notification that more deals have just gone live. And again, just keeping on top of this in case anything needs to change. So I guess it's fair to say it's a pretty intense and exciting period, as there's a lot to keep on top of over the Black Friday event, and many teams play a critical role in this. And then that brings us nicely onto the last element, which I called out at the beginning. So what makes Black Friday event a success at the very group? And this is probably the most important element of the whole process. It absolutely does require all teams across the whole business to come together and work collaboratively. So you can just see on the slide some of the teams involved, but just a big caveat, this isn't an exhaustive list. There are many, many other teams across the business involved in Black Friday, but this is just to give you an example of some of the teams. So we've got the marketing team who ensure all the customer communication is happening, whether that be email or app notifications. We've got the brand team ensuring the TV ads are running at the most optimum time for maximum viewers. We've got the trading teams ensuring the Black Friday event is live on the website and is running smoothly. Category buying, ensuring we have the right product deals at the right price, and merchandising, managing the stock. Tech teams ensuring everything on the website's working as it shows with no outages. And obviously the rest of the session you'll hear a lot more about the tech side of things. The finance team reviewing the sales performance and providing live financial dashboards. The operations and logistics teams ensuring the warehouses are getting all of the products out to the customer. The financial service team ensuring if customers want to open a credit account or use our buy now pay later option, then it can be done easily. The market insight team are reviewing what is happening within the rest of the market, so what are other retailers doing. And then the customer research team are speaking directly to our customer to find out what's important to them over Black Friday. So as I mentioned, this isn't all of the teams across the business. This is just an example of some of the teams and how critical cross-department collaboration is over the Black Friday event. So just to recap on the 4 elements that I've talked through, the Black Friday event drives double the sales seen in a normal month and has seen significant growth of over 100% over the last 5 years. Planning for the event started a year prior with learnings and insight from all areas across the business. The event is managed closely throughout to strive for maximum success, and then successful delivery of the event requires collaboration and teamwork across all areas of the business. Okay, so that is me, and hopefully it's given you just an overview of the key elements of how we plan and manage the Black Friday event here at the Very Group. I know I've said it's a very intense time, but all in all, it's a really exciting and rewarding time, more than anything else. So that's me. I think I'm now handing over to Rob.
Thank you very much, Cathy. That was really, really insightful. Next up, we have Robert Crompton, who is the head of service management, and Robert's going to talk to you a little bit more, around the history of Black Friday and its origins from a tech perspective.
Hi everyone. As Phil just said, Rob Crompton, head of the service management team at the Very Group. I'm going to share my screen 1 second. I think Cathy may need to stop sharing first. It's showing on.
Has that worked?
Still sharing, I think, showing you.
Hang on, I'm just trying to find the options to stop sharing. Anyone know how to stop sharing? I can't maximize.
Should be at the top of your screen.
No, it's not, is it?
If you go to the window you're sharing, it sometimes says stop sharing above it, I think.
Not working for me, sorry. Don't know how to
Rob,
do
I
it.
think if you try to share yours, I think that should end Cathy's share.
No, it says I can't do that. There's another person sharing. Apologies.
Right, pin, hide non-chat pin. It's not giving me a huge amount of options at the top.
Cathy, when you shared your screen, there was an option at the bottom which says share screen. Is there anything at the bottom? If you hover your mouse over the bottom of your screen?
It just says quit Zoom, close window. It's just not letting me do anything. Sorry.
Rob, I think I've managed to change the settings. I think you should be able to share your screen now.
Yeah, I can do that now. Yeah, it's working. Sorry about that, guys.
Sorry about that. I'll just go on mute.
Okay, you see my PowerPoint screen there, guys? I'll just put it into presentation mode. There you go. Is that, you can see this normal presentation mode okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Great stuff. Cheers, guys. Thank you. Okay, so Rob Crompton, I'm going to talk about the history of Black Friday from a tech perspective. What I'd like to just cover off first is, when it first started in the UK. So the first Black Friday in the UK was 2013. We'd heard in the news that something may be happening. It was a completely foreign thing. It was a US event that we'd never really come across before. And what I was just showing on that graph here is the sort of size of that event versus a non-peak day. And by non-peak, we mean outside of our golden quarter, which is October, November, December, so the Christmas peak period. So you can see on the Black Friday 2013 came along, and it was about 130% bigger than a non-peak day at the time. The volumes on there actually aren't that big these days, but it was back in those days. This was quite a big online event. And we had a Samsung tablet pricing error, which was quite a new device at the time that caused the very website to experience problems. We were in the process of transitioning from one web platform to another at the time as well. So that was our first sort of brush and encounter with Black Friday in the UK and at the Very Group as well. But it had arrived. It was here. It was featured heavily in the news. You see some clippings there. It's mentioned it was a High Street unveils American-style Black Friday shopping bonanzas. The press are doing the usual, trying to build it up and whip the public into a bit of a frenzy about it all. So we thought to ourselves, right, we know this has happened. It's here. It's going to probably be the same again next year. We better get ready for 2014 and make sure that from a tech perspective and across our business as well, we may make sure we're ready for Black Friday 2014, which we're expecting more of the same. But Black Friday 2014 came along and it wasn't the same at all. It was much, much bigger. So the event itself was about 200% bigger in traffic and order volumes than we saw in 2013. It was huge. Most online retailers in the UK crashed during the course of that morning. Amazon had problems, Argos and Currys, all the big retailers had issues. And that sort of pushed traffic to the Very website. And we were one of the last ones to go down, but we acquired a lot of traffic from a lot of the competitors who were struggling at the time. And we had a number of outages during the course of the morning. And as I say, it was absolutely huge, unprecedented demand, never expected anything like it. We actually had to implement Akamai's visitor prioritization or queuing pages during the course of the afternoon in order to control the flow of traffic onto the websites. Again, queuing pages was something that we probably weren't as common at the time. We see a lot more of these days, and was something we have now in our arsenal. But at the time, we had to actually contract with the provider and implement them there, and then to keep us trading throughout the day. It was the biggest day we've ever seen. The graph there just shows you the scale of that compared to sort of Black Friday the previous year and non-peak day as well. And this was the year when things got a little bit ugly in Tesco's and Asda, and people were fighting over TVs, and I think the police were called out to some of the supermarkets. He was one of the ones that marred the experience on the high street really, and pushed it really to be more of an online event in the future years. So we thought to ourselves, we better get ready now. We know this is Black Friday's here. It's been here for 2 years. It's much bigger than we ever expected. We need to do much more to prepare ourselves in the future years and what's going to come in 2015. So out of the Black Friday 2014 came the Peak Project. I'm going to talk to you a bit about what we do on the Peak Project. So we want to invest time in our platforms, our people, our suppliers, and to make sure we're ready for not just Black Friday, but the whole peak period and any unexpected trading events that may come about. So these are the key pillars of the Tech Peak Project. And some of the guys, Tony and Seb, are going to talk after me. We'll talk in more detail about the technical aspects of some of these things. But we have a Peak team, which is a cross-tech, cross-tribe team working throughout the year, driving improvements across all our systems, looking at performance tuning and planning for this, the big events towards the end of the year, or this time of the year. We're also, as we implementing change all the way throughout the year, new projects and new initiatives that come along, we've got an eye on what it's going to do for in the peak period. Are we prepared? Have we built these things ready for our peak trading period and for Black Friday in particular? We look at scaling up our platforms, so capacity management and planning all the way throughout the year, making sure that everything's ready from scaling up our environments across not just our cloud platforms, our on-premise platforms and our suppliers as well. And Seb's going to talk a bit more about that when he comes around to his section shortly. Then production stress testing and test environment scenario testing. Tony's going to talk in detail about this, but this is where we just really want to sort of prepare ourselves for the unexpected by simulating that behavior and that load on our websites, and really understand our weak points and sort of react to that and plan accordingly. As I say, Tony's going to come on to that in a lot more detail. Supplier engagement. We have, like most companies, a lot of suppliers who underpin our tech estate and support our business. And we need to make sure it's not just ourselves who are doing the diligence around planning for Black Friday and preparations, but it's also our suppliers as well. So we work with them throughout the year, really establish good relationships with them, share insights on what we've seen around the Black Friday event and our key peak trading periods, also what they saw in the previous years, how they can improve. And we really work with them to tune the platforms, make sure the applications are ready for what may be around the corner, but also from a support perspective, making sure they've got the right people in place and the right processes in place, the right run books to react to any eventuality that may come up. We also have our peak change period, which we implement. So traditionally, going back a few years, we may have had a peak change freeze, and a lot of organisations do that. We really lock down change over the peak period to protect our operational systems. We don't do that these days. We have a big tech roadmap, lots of tech transformation changes that are needed. So we can't afford to take a 3-month break in change. We need to continue that through the peak period. But what we do, we take a look at change in that period and say, what is the right change to do? What are the days when you don't want to do certain types of changes? And it's a risk-based approach to change within that period. Protect our key trading and operational platforms, but also to allow our change agenda to continue and not hold things up and build everything up for January as well. And that's worked really well in the last couple of years for us. We also implement a hypercare process with our suppliers and our internal teams. So instead of just relying on our sort of alerting and monitoring, we've got our teams proactively health checking throughout the key dates in November and December in particular, to make sure we pick up any issues and we can react to them quickly. Because although we prepare all year round through the Peak Project to make sure we can sustain the volumes and the unpredictable behaviour that might come from trading events, we also know that in technology we can experience problems, and we need to be able to react really quickly to that. So we need to have the right playbooks in place, and we need to know that if we have a problem, we can spot it quickly, we can react to it, we can mitigate the impact, and we can recover from it quickly without having any impact to our trading, to our customers as well. And then lastly, this year we introduced our new Tech Ops Centre. So we previously been a little bit dependent on some of our third parties to manage our estate for us, and a lot of that has come back in-house over the last couple of years. So our Tech Ops Centre are working 24/7 based in our Speak head office, and those guys are our eyes on glass across the whole tech estate 24/7 from an operational perspective and a security perspective as well. So really those guys are calling out any issues. They have a number of triage procedures they can run through, and then links into all our various support teams as well. So we really rely heavily upon those guys. Well, that's just a little bit about the key pillars of the Peak project. As I say, the other guys will touch on some of these things in more detail, technically how we achieve these things. But the Peak project has ushered in 6 years now of successful Black Friday events. So just the graph there showing 2015 through to 2021. So this year, another great, successful event. It's still the biggest day of the year. It's still about 200% up on a non-peak day. So it's still a massive event for us, but we cope with it well. We don't have any issues. We plan for more than Black Friday. We plan for the unexpected as well. And it really stands us in good stead. Just to give you a bit of an idea of how our peak period builds, just to give you sort of an idea of how it builds throughout that period in October and November. So the 25th of October, we're doing about 5,000 orders an hour. And we're moving to the 8th of November, we're doing about 8,000 orders an hour. 23rd of November, 10,000. And into Black Friday, about 16,000 orders an hour. So that volume, the traffic, the order rate, the customers on our sites builds throughout October and November, and sort of peaks a big crescendo in at the end of November. But it's not all about Black Friday. We have other events that have come out of the woodwork as well. That through the Peak project, we've been stood in good stead. So the PlayStation 5 and Xbox launch in 2020, the size of that wasn't expected. And I think it caught out a lot of people across the online retail market, and many competitors suffered outages when it first went live in, I think it was November 2020. But we were okay. The volume wise, we sustained the volume. We prepared through our Peak project and the testing we do. We prepared for the unexpected, and the volume didn't cause us an issue. We were able to weather the storm and take that volume. And that's continued throughout the year. It's almost like a feeding frenzy every time these things go live. It's bigger than Black Friday for a short period of time. And you can see on the graph below there, that's Black Friday 2021, the orange line, and the brown line is the PlayStation 5 event on the 9th of November. So about 3 weeks ago. 3 or 4 weeks ago, we're still seeing that huge spike in volume, and the PlayStations are 190%, nearly 200% higher than Black Friday in some of the spikes in the volumes we see there. But again, through the preparation we do throughout the course of the year, all the hard work the teams put in there, we're able to weather the storm there and cope with that quite comfortably. And again, Seb's going to talk about technically how we manage some of the events like the PlayStation. Some great stuff we've been doing in that space as well. That's it from me. I'll pass on to Tony, I think, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you very much, Robert. As Rob's already mentioned, we now have Tony Cave, who is a performance test manager at the Very Group, joining us. So as a performance test manager, Tony's going to give you the full rundown on performance testing and its key pillars within the business.
Cool. Okay. Cheers, Phil. Hi, everyone. I will just do the usual and announce that I'm going to share my screen to give you some time while we don't use Zoom at the Very Group, so bear with me. Hopefully everyone can see my screen.
Yep.
If you can't shout, great, thank you. Okay, so who am I? I am Tony Cave. As Phil said, I am the performance test manager here at the Very Group. Excellent. So just like to begin, but I think just stating the obvious, which is that I think we all understand and we all appreciate the importance of performance in the IT world. So it affects and it influences all as individuals, as well as those of us who work in the IT world. So, there's nothing worse than waiting for a page to load. And apart from when you use them the extra few milliseconds can be frustrating. Especially when you're trying to do something vital. Probably when you're trying to log off on a Friday, that's when them milliseconds count. But yeah, it's very important to all of us. So what is our approach to performance testing? I think Cathy and Rob have put some really good summaries together of a lot of things that can influence how and what we need to performance test. And hopefully it's clear that we actually performance test all year round, with the key focus on Black Friday. I think a good example of that is as early as February each year, we start running production tests. We run these overnight when there's low traffic, but we run full-scale production tests in the environment just to prove that we are ready for Black Friday. So yeah, we're continuously focusing on Black Friday. So in terms of our performance testing, you'll see there's 3 main pillars that we use to deliver. The first pillar is about building the load model. So we start with reviewing historical data. We look at the previous year, if not previous years, just to find what peaks we see in our traffic. And then we start using that to build the load model. We look at how trends can change throughout the time of year. We even look at trends potentially throughout the time of day. Obviously, we see a lot of sales for Black Friday, but our peak for returned items is actually a different time of year. And we make sure that we build all of that into the load model. And then on top of this, we also do look at customers' browsing habits. We need to go down to a really, really low scale. We look at customers' think time, wait time, and we consider building all this in as part of the model. We then need to look at the plans for the upcoming Black Friday and how this could change customer shopping habits. A couple of years ago, we actually did hourly deals. So rather than releasing everything at the same time, at midnight, we were releasing portions of products throughout the day on the hour. So obviously that load model was significantly different to releasing everything at the same time. And then we also maybe need to look at if we're planning to do large mobile app pushes. For example, if we're going to send 1 million mobile app pushes, depending on the time of day, depending on the type of customer, the customer base that we're going to send it to, then we may see a difference in customer interaction. And all of this needs to be built into our load model. And then just quickly on the final bullet point, we also do need to consider things that can influence traffic. Great examples are COVID, obviously. More recently, you may have heard of something called Singles Day, which is quite new. So Singles Day can be harder to predict. And it's things like this that we do need to consider for the load model. And Rob touched on, the big wish list items, the product launches like your Apple products, your PS5s. Again, we do need to consider. However, we do get some visibility of these product launches, obviously, and I think Seb's going to explain some of that when we move on to Seb after this. So we take a lot of information, we do a lot of analysis, and all of this defines the load model, which we can then build. And then after that, we move on to the second key pillar, which is how we actually stress test and how we run our performance tests. And for us, there's a lot of test tools out in the market. However, we made the decision quite early on that we would use our own in-house designed and built test tool. The key thing, or one of the key factors with performance testing, is reproducibility and repeatability of your load test. This is so vital to ensuring that the actual performance of your performance tests. If you can't control these factors, you don't know if you're improving performance or not, because you're not repeating what you've done previously. We created the tool that gives us this control, and it gives us confidence in our test injection. Quite high level. The tool was created using Visual Studio. It consists of a controller, and then we have a number of injectors, which we can flex depending on how much load that we're trying to fire into the environment. So the controller orchestrates, and the injectors do the legwork. All of this kit, it's all EC2s, so it's all hosted on AWS, and therefore it's all in the cloud. Another thing, I think I touched on this earlier, but even our NFT environment is a fully scaled copy of production. And importantly, we have no shared resources with our environment. So again, we can confidently test. We have the reproducibility, the repeatability factor, knowing that no network traffic will impact what we're doing. I guess if everyone wants to watch the Grinch at lunchtime in the lunch hour, then that won't in fact impact my test. So that's cool. If everyone wants to watch the Grinch, please do. There are some stubs, there are some drivers in the environment. We don't want to test third parties because we cannot control their services. So there are some stubs, but otherwise there is a fully scaled test environment. When it comes to running performance tests, I've just listed some of the key tests that we run through. We run our standard typical test, but then we also have some additional tests just to prove that we are ready for Black Friday. So we've got there the ramp test. This is our test that we sometimes call our break test. And we just use this to push our environments to well in excess of anticipated traffic levels. So we know we've got a lot of headroom where we should need it. Similarly, we have a soak test. We run this for up to 24 hours. And this just looks at ensuring that there's no stuck threads, ensuring that there's no memory being held on for too long. And again, it just makes sure that we are ready for Black Friday. We do also, as part of the performance team, we also have a suite of what we call test services. So I've noted down cache warm-up, and what our cache warm-up is this is a production script. And it helps with caching large volumes of data. We do this early on before customers start browsing and requesting this data. And this helps speed up their experience. And again, it saves on these milliseconds that we talk about. And it caches things like your product data. Cathy touched on, the stock, the pricing, which is always changing. If we can cache this before our customers start using it, just makes it that little bit quicker for when they're using our sites. So pillar 1, we define the load model. Pillar 2, we run our tests, we stress the environment, and then we move on to the important pillar, which is actually validating that our tests are showing that we are ready and we are performant. So as part of the monitoring reporting, we always start off with a baseline. The baseline shows us what a good test and effectively what a bad test would look like. If we know what these look like, then any subsequent tests can be run and we can validate if those tests are successful as well. In terms of our measuring and reporting, we have various server, database, monitoring tools. These are, your standard tools that come out of the box. But we also built a reporting tool alongside the internal performance test tool that we built. The reporting tool that we built, this focuses on end-to-end measures, and we look at the key measures of throughput, latency, and response times. Throughput is how many transactions can be processed in a time period. Latency is looking at how long the network takes to respond. And then our response times is the end-to-end transaction time. So that's the real customer experience and how long it's taking for someone, for example, to purchase a product. So these 3 technical measures are really useful just to measure that there's no degradation, we're matching our baseline, and there's no pinch points. We do also use some widely known tools. For example, we use AWS Cloud, we use App Dynamics. App Dynamics is an application performance management tool, and we can use these to also capture some key metrics such as the CPU, again, the memory, and we like to monitor these just to capture trends. If we see something is running too high, or it's starting to just, the trend is that it's starting to rise more so than we would like to in terms of our tolerances, then we can just use this information to investigate whether we've introduced something that is causing this, and if we're at risk of breaching those thresholds. And finally, we do also capture and review errors, both individually, because it could be a functional error. We can help out our functional test colleagues. But again, if we start seeing trends with errors, we can start looking at logs. We can maybe look at garbage collections as, again, these could just help identify issues further down the line. If we can find these trends early and we can capture them early, then we can prevent potential performance issues before they become issues. So it's a whistle-stop tour. We've got, as I say, the 3 pillars. We build the load model, we run the load tests, we verify the output, and confirm that we are all good for Black Friday. And with that, I think I'll say thanks for listening. If you've got any questions, or if you did want to know more info, because this is quite a quick overview, happy if you want to reach out on LinkedIn. With that, I will hand back to Phil. Cheers, Phil.
Lovely, thank you very much, Tony. And just to echo Tony's point there, if you do have any questions, we do have the Q&A feature open. We've got a few good questions lined up already, but please do get those questions in, and we can, as mentioned, follow up via email to get you answers on all of those as well. So look, we've had some really good speakers so far. To round things off, last but not least, we have Seb Koss, who is a software engineering lead. Seb is going to go into depth into the PS5 problem. He'll explain that hundreds of thousands of people swarmed around the site on one particular product page, and talk us through the prep work and infrastructure built, which helped them to avoid the site crashing when that happened. Over to you, Seb.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. So I will share my screen and hopefully you can see that.
Yeah, all good.
Cool. Okay, so yeah, like I say, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do to prepare for Black Friday based on all the good work that Tony's done trying to break our system. And then I'm going to explain a little bit about what happened with the PS5 as well, which was unexpected. So hang on, there we go. Why is it not moving? There we go. Cool. So first off, one of the things we did, which really actually set ourselves up for success with this, is right back in sort of 2012, 2013 sort of time, which Rob alluded to before. We actually were in the process of moving our e-commerce platform up into the cloud. So we knew we needed to do that because ultimately we needed to find a way to adapt quicker to changes in the market and things like that. And ultimately, by moving our e-commerce platform up onto EC2s, we could have that flexibility when we needed to. And it actually immediately saved us within that Black Friday for those 2 years that Rob talked about, where lots of other sites were crashing. We were actually one of the sites that actually stayed up the longest. We saw Argos and everyone just go around, I think 9 o'clock in the morning or something like that. Most of them had gone, including Amazon. But we actually managed to stay up to, I think, around 11, if I remember correctly. Obviously, we did eventually crash because all the demand came to us as well. But the benefit of having us in the cloud at this point was we could now adapt to the situation. We could, we had basically the infrastructure there at our fingertips, which was much better than having to manually try and figure things out within data centers. So that sort of set us up for success to start with. But one of the benefits since then, and I mean, this kind of helped at the time as well, but this is obviously some of the sort of tuning that we've been doing over the years. So by putting up in the cloud within AWS, we were able to start taking advantage of things like vertical scaling to protect the application. So what this means is we basically could beef up the EC2s that we had. So we had like sort of non-peak time, we would stick onto R5 X large, and that would be sort of 4 CPUs, with about 30 gig of RAM for our caches, which I'll talk about in a bit. We then bumped up to M5 2X larges, which is what we go for in peak. And again, that just gives us more faster processors basically that can handle more requests much more easily. And that gives us 8 CPUs, which is much nicer. Obviously, one of the things with vertical scaling is it is relatively expensive. So we also look at horizontal scaling. Horizontal scaling allows us to add more servers to the load balance. And by doing that, we can ultimately allow more requests to come through and lower the CPUs of all of these. So we can do this pretty easily with AWS. It doesn't take long to provision new servers and to basically add them to the load balancer. The other thing we looked at doing was offloading any unnecessary requests to our servers. So we offloaded things like static content requests to the edge. And by that, what I mean is we've got Akamai at the front. That's our CDN. That very easily can cope with demand. So what we've done with that is we've moved some of our static assets out to things like S3 buckets, where the edge server can basically go and request from there, but also it can be cached at the edge. So it's really, really fast, but it also takes the strain off our system when we're in peak mode. Obviously, it's all well and good. Hang on. Lose my thing. There we go. It's all well and good, obviously, making changes to the application and making that more performant. But the problem then comes with, well, you've just got to make changes to the database as well, because ultimately all those requests that we can now handle are going to start going down and hitting the database harder. So through, again, a lot of the work that Tony has done over the years, stress testing the system, we've realized, obviously, we can fine tune the caches. And this, again, it comes down to the fact that every time we do a stress test, we see that, okay, this cache wasn't right. Let's tweak it. And then we do it again, and then we tweak it again. That cache tuning we've been able to do over the years to get it to a position where when we come to peak, we're pretty happy with the caches as they are. Now, I mentioned before about horizontal scaling. One of the problems, and again, Tony alluded to this within the performance test environments, with horizontal scaling, you add new servers to the load balancer. Now, initially, you're adding them cold, which ultimately means that they're going to go and hammer the database on that first load. And we saw all this happening with the big spikes hitting the database. So we do a very similar thing to what Tony does, where we warm the caches up front before we add those to the load balancer. That allows us just to take that strain off and make sure that the application and the database remains performant. Now, there are certain things, obviously, that during peak, you can't cache or anything like that. Ultimately, with those, we just need more storage operations per second in the database. So we've been able to tune the IOPS within the database. This is a big Oracle database, and we've been able to do that and actually make changes to how many IOPS we want to put in. So that's kind of helped us as well. It's just a lever that we can pull when we need to. And then the other part is around connection pools. So creating a connection from an application to a database is more expensive than reusing a connection that's already there. So what we can do is with the connection pools that we've got, we can again just tweak the size of this, make sure that there's more connections available within that pool as we start scaling out or scaling up, so that ultimately we don't end up locking threads or slowing the application down as well. So that gives you a bit of an overview of what we've done for Black Friday and all the things we've done to tweak our system to make it more performant. But ultimately, as Rob said, when it came to November 12th last year, these two were released. And Black Friday, if you think about it, it's across lots and lots of products. This is just one single product. And what happened is the demand, as you saw from the slide, was absolutely huge, which meant that the likes of Argos, Game, Currys, John Lewis, even Amazon basically crashed, and they all faltered to some degree. We actually didn't. We were actually able to weather the storm on that one. It was okay. But the problem with this is because it was a single item or two single items really, they were actually getting hit, and there was hundreds of thousands of people swarming around the site to actually try and purchase one of these. It meant that we found a different problem instead. The problem we found was we were overselling stock. We couldn't. They were just flying off the shelves literally, and we couldn't stop it. And in a way, some of the people some of the sites that crashed there's a different problem for them. But what we end up finding is obviously when we're overselling stock, we then have to cancel some of this stock because we've been given so many units of PlayStations from Sony. So we ended up having to cancel the orders, which obviously makes the customers very unhappy. And unhappy customers is not what we want, but unhappy PS5 customers is definitely not what you want. So they end up complaining obviously to the likes of Sony as well as us, and ultimately then Sony are unhappy as well. So that was the sort of problem that we were facing with. Now, the reason why this happened ultimately is the way that our stock system is separate. Like as Cathy mentioned before, they monitor the stock in there, but ultimately it comes up to our e-commerce platform, which tells us something is in stock. We've got stock of PlayStations. And you can see on the right here, we've got a very typical customer journey from the homepage going all the way through checkout into the order confirmation page. Now, what we were finding was because there was hundreds of thousands of people swarming around the product page. As soon as we released the stock to it, they were all trying to get through. They were all adding to basket, and they were all going through that journey of product basket and then into checkout. We didn't have any sort of stock reservation at the time, so we were actually having the place order was actually sending a message to the stock management system to tell it that we've placed an order. But you can see the problem here. There's a bit of a delay between the people adding to basket and people placing an order. And ultimately, what we found was the stock management system would find out a little bit too late that we'd sold them all. So that was one problem. But the next problem was we had new stock coming in a week. So this was where I got a call basically, and we all had to just jump on this, and Tony was there as well. And we were all looking at how can we get something to resolve this, because you remember we're in peak at the moment. This is, we're getting close to Black Friday, and we need to start selling these PlayStations before Christmas. So what did we build? So we started looking at this, and we thought we can't build into our e-commerce platform very easily. We can't start changing the way that our checkout system works, or our stock system works, or our add to basket. What we can do is we can utilize the power of the cloud. We can utilize how easy it is to develop in AWS and actually use that to solve this problem. So we built basically a sort of a stock accounting system that would allow us to sell these items and sort of filter out how much traffic actually came through. So you can see that we've built an API gateway, and that allowed us to make sure it was nice and secure. We built a Lambda, which we built in Node.js for the speed really, and also because we knew that one really well. We also then built a DynamoDB, which ultimately held the stock for us for the items, and then we put a DAX cluster in front of it for speed and optimizations. Now, the way that worked on the product page was, as customers would hit the product page, it would load. It would do a get out to the API, and ultimately come back with it, in stock or out of stock. If it was in stock, then the customers would then be able to add to basket. But as we mentioned before, even though we were in peak mode, that amount of people hitting the product page at that time still meant there was a little bit of a delay between somebody loading the page and somebody actually clicking add to basket. So when we did the add to basket, we needed to ensure that would, do another check basically to make sure that it still is in stock. So that was a patch request that went up to DynamoDB to reduce the stock. Obviously, when it hit 0 in the DynamoDB, then that would stop people from being able to add to basket again. And that the benefit, like I say, of this is this allowed us to get through or filter out how many people would get through add to basket, and it would allow the stock management system to catch up with those units. So say we had the 5,000 units from 5,000 PS5s, we know that we could just stop it dead on 5,000 add to baskets. We'd wait for it to come through, and then we'd see have we sold them all. So that was what was designed. Now, one of the things we needed to make sure, because there were so many people hitting the database at any one time, so we needed to ensure that we could stop at that 0 and that we wouldn't get any sort of race conditions or anything like that. So what we looked at is with DynamoDB, they do a few different things. One of them is called conditional writes. With this, what you can do is you can basically state your condition of, you can only write to this if there is more than 0 stock. So that's what we added in, where ultimately, as you can see here, you've got two people both getting the stock at the same time. They realize that there is stock, so then they're able to see it. They both click add to basket at the same time. But the way that DynamoDB works is if there's this condition on it, it will always make sure that it is atomic, and it will only run one at a time. So the first person, the quickest request that actually comes through will get through. The other thing we had to look at was around performance. So we've got a DynamoDB, and we know that although DynamoDB is pretty good, it can get hot partitions and things like that. And ultimately, these would be pretty hot in that sense. So what we wanted to do is protect the DynamoDB as much as we could. So we put a DAX cluster in front of it, which is Dynamodb Accelerator. And the way that this works is, it's a write-through cache. So what would happen is the first person to do a get would ultimately go through to the DynamoDB, and on the way back, it would write through into the cache with a TTL of 5 minutes to say this was in stock. Then every subsequent request would, for a get request, would hit the cache and return that back. And we found this was absolutely massive for us, because when we looked at how many times this is being hit and the sort of CPU of it, it hardly broke a sweat. It got about 5% CPU usage, that DynamoDB, the DAX cluster. And then the other thing is, when it comes to add to basket, what would happen is we put a patch through that would obviously go through the DAX cluster, hit the DynamoDB, and then it would write through the DAX cluster again on the way back. And the benefit of that is, after that first get request, every subsequent get request went through the cache, which meant that the DynamoDB was only really processing patch requests, which meant it was limited in how much it was used. So obviously we've talked about the DynamoDB. The other side of it is the Lambda. Now, we knew the API gateway could handle this amount of requests, but the Lambda, we knew that there's potentially some issues that could arise with this. So again, working with Tony, we realized that we needed to test this and see what problems would happen if we did it with cold starts. Now, the problems came out straight away within testing that it would hold threads within our e-commerce platform. So what we then started looking at is, okay, well, let's tune the provision concurrency on this. Let's provision enough Lambdas to actually get us to a position where that doesn't happen. And after a while, we got to about 250 Lambdas, which ultimately gave us enough provision Lambdas that would actually handle all the requests really, really quickly. So that's basically me. Just wanted to run through a little bit of that. As you can see, there's tons and tons of stuff that goes on. It's really exciting when you start getting onto some of these like problems that come out, and just goes to show, no matter how much preparation and planning you do, there's always something that will pop out that needs to be resolved quickly as well. But it's what the fun of being a software engineer is, right?
Lovely. Thank you very much, Steph. Really, really interesting. I think it's great to go on that journey right from the kind of high level initial planning through to actually kind of seeing under the bonnet and getting some real insight into kind of the how and the day to day. So we are going to jump into Q&A now. Obviously, we don't have too long left, but we will try and get a question out to at least every one of our panelists. So Cathy, if we could start with you. So we've had a question come in, which is basically, now that Black Friday is over, what's next for your team?
So I guess we've got many other retail events across the year that are clearly not as big as Black Friday, obviously, because that is the biggest event across the whole year, but they are still really important in relation to the rest of the year. So we still plan, we still collaborate with all the teams across events such as we have end of season sale. So we'll have a big winter end of season sale, we'll have a big summer end of season sale. We have bank holidays, so we work on what our sort of selling approaches over them bank holidays. We also plan sort of the detail for the rest of the Christmas period, which is probably just as important as Black Friday. So the October and the December, because our customers continue to shop sort of right up to that 23rd of December. So it's just as important to plan for them. And then we've got lots of other retail events sort of that you will know, such as Mother's Day, Valentine's, Halloween, they all get planned for. And then the guys have mentioned the gaming, you know, we have to plan in detail when them gaming launches are going to drop, but also things like other launches, like Apple launches, they're big, they're really important to our customers, so we're planning for that. So ultimately, we try and emulate the level of planning and insight and collaboration that we do see for Black Friday for these key events as well. So yeah, a lot going on, pretty busy all year round.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So anyone on this call that is thinking about their next career move, there's plenty to keep you busy at the Very Group all year round. Great, Rob, if we could come to you next. So another question kind of come in, it just says, what do you think Very Group do better than your competitors?
Well, I know I can say what I think the Very Group do really well, whether it's better than the competitors or not, not working for them, I'm not sure. But one of the things I think when it comes to this in the context of Black Friday and peak, I think one of the best things we do as an organisation, I think the guys may have alluded to some of this stuff anyway, is we come together as an organisation really well. So everyone has this common purpose, which is the peak period, Black Friday, and it galvanises the entire business. And during the rest of the year, like a lot of other organisations, people are working on individual projects, initiatives, day-to-day activity, but it really does focus the mind of everyone across the entire group. And the spirit of it, it's almost like everyone, I don't know, you can liken it to maybe everyone following the same football team. It brings everyone to that real support in the organisation, really the same mentality and really driving towards a common purpose, which really helps to, you know, to get the event over the line and prepare for it really well. I think that's just a great asset the business have, the people.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Great insight there. Excellent. And now, Tony, just if we could dive into a question for you. It's a question's coming around the kind of agile approach to performance testing. Is that the approach that you take? And if so, could you kind of walk us through how you kind of go about that?
Cool. Yeah. So we do agile performance testing at the Very Group. It's quite a new journey that we're starting on in terms of getting everyone involved in performance testing. I think our key thing is everyone is a performance tester. So as I mentioned early on, we all are, you know, impacted by performance. We all get frustrated. As we all understand what performance is, we can all performance test. So very high level, how it works in the Very Group is we have a number of lower level tools that have been built using sort of the K6 tool model. And we have a framework for this, which we can then give out to various tribes, various teams that can be test teams within the tribes or engineers themselves. And the guys can use those tools to do a more low level unit level testing, maybe testing an individual API, etc. So in terms of the agile approach, we ask for everyone to adopt performance testing as early as possible. And then the idea is if they can performance test their own change, then that change can go live. And then my team bring all those changes together and we ensure that they all work collectively before we get to Black Friday. So it's still something that we're working on at the moment, something that we're doing, but yeah, that's how we adopt the agile approach in performance testing.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Tony. And Seb, putting you on the spot here, we've not got too long, but we have had a quick question just come in and say, your approach to the PS5 problem, as you call it, is interesting. How do you go about identifying any potential issues before Black Friday?
Yeah, so obviously a lot of the stuff that Rob and Tony and Cathy have talked about, we kind of have to look into. So like when there's marketing events, we know that these things are going to be big, and we need to look at what we can do to make sure that the system works from our perspective, and then we're not going to cause any problems. Again, the things that Tony's talked about there, we've got massive performance tests that we run through, and load tests that we run throughout the year. And off the back of those kinds of things, we'll start to see, okay, there's a little, something's creaking over here, and then we just go over and try and fix that thing, and identify those issues. But even, separately to that, the way that we kind of work within sort of our tribe as well, is we actually look at, for example, every quarter we'll have a health week. And the idea here is all the engineers will go and look into the systems and start delving into all the application logs, all the access logs, or things like the app dynamics application performance monitoring tools, and try and see, is there anything in there that's causing any problems? If there is, let's get it on a backlog, let's get that fixed. And it gives us that sort of headroom to start looking at things and say, okay, instead of it just being feature delivery constantly, it's actually take a step back, do some continuous improvement, and make sure that we're actually fixing things as we're going along, not just delivering new things that the customer will enjoy, but ensuring that the system holds up as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And look, thank you to all of our speakers today. I think we got some really good insight, as mentioned, into the Very Group. Sounds like an incredibly well run and collaborative business, a lot of planning, a lot of thought, put into project and trying to identify any future issues that may come up. So anyone out there that is listening that was interested in what they kind of heard today, I really would encourage you to get in touch with the Very Group. As mentioned, we'll follow up with an email with all the instructions as to how you can get in touch and pick up those conversations and have a chat with their HR team, the recruitment team, just to try and get a little more insight into how you could join them and further your own career. We do also have a podcast with the Very Group. We were joined by Matt Grest, who is the CIO of the Very Group. That'll be coming out in the next few weeks, so please keep an eye out for that. That'll be released under the umbrella of DevLab. Just a final thanks to Cathy, Robert, Tony and Seb for their contributions today. Some really good insight. And thank you to all of you out there for joining us. Have a lovely day, and we hope to see you again in the new year.